Good day, everyone, and it's really great to be with you again. Today is our second lesson in visual literacy. We're looking at cartoons in particular, and I am Mrs. Swart, and I'll be taking you through this lesson. Please take note that at the end of the lesson, there's a quiz that we'd really like all of you to complete. I think if all of you were to complete it, it would really make my day. I'd be so happy. So let's see what we're going to look at today. I told you last time that we were going to look at a cartoon and analyze it a little bit so that we know a bit more about how to answer it. But just a reminder to tell you what cartoons are about. We know that they intend to make us laugh. They're meant to be funny or humorous. And remember that funny is not necessarily ha-ha, screaming with laughter, but it's something, just a case of shaking your head and say, that's really weird, strange, funny even. It comments on current events. It tells stories. It comments on political or social events, but in a humorous way. So remember, when we speak of humor, which is the word that is used in exams, then we're speaking of what makes it funny. Satire is to criticize a person's weakness by making fun of it. And I'm going to show you an example a little later on. Irony, it's basically the opposite of what is meant. Someone says something or does something, or what they say and what they do is not the same. It's the opposite of what they say. Sarcasm, that is, the intention of sarcasm is to hurt someone's feelings. So let's have a look at the advert we're going to take. Oh, adverts, cartoon. My goodness me, I'm a whole step ahead. That's our next lesson, is going to be adverts. Let's look at our cartoon today. If you look at this picture, there's really a lot you can read in it. And why do I say read in it in exclamation marks, inverted marks, quotation marks with that big exclamation at the back? Is because we don't need to have words. Yeah, we have words, but it isn't essential. Let's look at what this tells us. This tells us that we have these people in the cartoon. We have these two children, and they're looking at a typewriter. I hope it's not the first time you've ever seen a typewriter. And this young boy says to the girl, I figure it's some kind of medieval texting machine. Now, I'm going to look at the different aspects of a cartoon and point them out using this specific cartoon so that you can get an idea of what to do. Now, let's look at this. When we think of characters, here we have this boy and girl, a young boy and a young girl. But I want you to remember that characters don't necessarily have to be people, could be animals, and it could be objects, and the objects are usually personified. And that is because you could have had the typewriter speaking, they could have animated it or had it as the main character. So remember that it doesn't have to be people or animals. When we speak of the body language here, you can look at these two children. Their shoulders are hunched forward. They're obese. Obese means they're overweight or chubby. And please make sure that when you select language to use to explain, don't try and be fancy and use these massive words. Use simple words. Keep it simple, Sam. Use words that you know and you're comfortable using, and rather say, oh, they're a little bit on the fat side, than what you say they're obese, because you might just not get that right and you might use a word incorrectly. If you look at their heads, aha, facial expression is something slightly different from body language. But if I speak about someone's head, and in this case, they're texting all the time, so their heads are drooping forward or slightly forward on their necks. They're not nice and upright. Their heads are bent forward a little bit. That means that we wouldn't necessarily be able to see facial expressions, and that would be part of their body language, that their heads are bent forward or slightly appear to be forward. So remember, words like they're overweight or chubby or fat even sounds very mean, but we have to consider that. And please remember, one of the most important things, say what you see. Do not ever say, I can see it in the picture, I could see it in the cartoon, or I can see it in the advert. What are you seeing? Remember, The marker doesn't know what you're seeing. The marker is totally ignorant. They know nothing. You have to tell them. So when we look at the facial expressions, it could be serious. And how do you know that this child's serious? His eyes are wide. Look at the mouth of the boy. It seems like he's asking something, like he's a little concerned because he's not quite sure what this thing is that he sees. And the girl's just, her mouth seems to be pursed or pressed close, as if she doesn't have a response. So you can't just say, he looks concerned. How do you know he looks concerned? Say what you see as if the examiner doesn't know what you are seeing. That's really important. I want you to remember that when you respond to these. So you could say he looks concerned or surprised because his eyes are wide open in surprise. Remember, if I'm angry, my face will be twisted or contorted into a scowl. I'll be frowning. My cheeks are blown up because I'm angry, and I will, body language wise, I'll clench my hands in fists and put them on my hips, and I'll be leaning forward slightly. So if I'm frowning and I have this scowl on my face, you're going to know, oh, ma'am's angry. We better watch out today because there's trouble. Those are the sort of things you describe. When your teacher walks into class, you know, we'd better behave ourselves today. Ma'am's in a bad mood, but how do you know it? Because you're reading facial expressions, you're reading body language. Setting, your setting is, where does it take place? And it could be where and when. Now, we can't see when here because we don't know. There aren't any windows to give us the idea that it's daytime or anything like that. But the setting, it could be a library or a museum because there's a display there. Something's on display, something's been shown, and that is a typewriter. Speech bubble, we know this is direct speech because this learner is speaking to someone, telling someone something. But remember, speech bubble doesn't have to be the bubble form. It could be like a zigzag of like a lightning bolt. There might not even be a speech bubble. There doesn't have to be a speech bubble if it's one person alone in a frame. Then they needn't put a speech bubble because you will know that is our speaker, and that is the secret. You must say what you mean. I've already told you about the examiner or marker. They're not there to fill in gaps. They're not there to say, oh, I know what he means. I understand what he means. Punctuation. Yeah, we have the correct use of the apostrophe. There are no full stops, but it doesn't mean that it has any significance. It doesn't mean it's important to whatever's happening here. Movement. These children are standing still in front of the display. We don't see those little lines that show us something's happening. But if you look in the background, those characters seem to be moving. And why? Because of the body, the way their body is hunched forward. They have the cell phone in front of them, and their feet appear to be walking. So we have that idea of movement there. And here we're speaking about the silhouettes indicate that the people are walking. They hunched forward, all of those things, their legs appear to be moving. So here's a very clever trick in the background to make us think they're moving, but they might not be moving. Language. You'll notice that there's a little bit of a conflict here because, yeah, contradiction between slang and sort of an old-fashioned and the old-fashioned language. He says he figures. Now, if you figure something out, you work it out, you actually deduce something, and that would be the proper English to use. But in this case, this learner has used something that's almost a slang term compared to speaking of medieval. Now, when we speak of medieval, it's an old-fashioned word. That means that he thinks it comes from the Victorian age and even long before that when King Arthur roamed the world. So look carefully at this. And then the font, in here, everything is uppercase or capital letters. Sometimes it could mean something. It could mean that this person's trying to emphasize something. You could justify the capitals as wanting to emphasize something, but the cartoonist might not have meant anything by it, but he could have meant to really accentuate something here. When we look at frames, we know that cartoons come in frames, but in this case, we only have a cartoon, not the full comic strip. And our stereotypes, these chubby children who do not they don't exercise. It should be, and do not exercise, and they spend all their time on their phones. What happens here? We have the stereotype of a child who just is on their phone all the time, and that's what you expect them to look like. Then symbols, the light in the showcase could have a significance, but it might not. And then we have emotive language when he refers to the typewriter as a medieval texting machine. That's quite emotive because it creates this image of, wow, this is something totally strange. Message, what is the cartoonist trying to tell us? He could be telling us the age gap is big between adults and children. And then what makes this funny? Remember what I told you about funny doesn't have to be ha-ha. Now, I can't stop too long there. What I want to show you here is an example of satire where you're criticizing or making fun. People must stand together, but look at where they're standing together. In front of the unemployment office. That is not the ideal. Vandalism sucks. This is ironic because he's vandalizing a place, yet he is against vandalism. And then here we have sarcasm, and that's, ouch, this hurts. It's intended to hurt. If someone says to, if you're going to be two-faced, at least have one of them pretty. So actually what this person's saying, you're really ugly in what you're doing. So at least if you're going to be two-faced, make sure that one part of you that people meet is decent and is kind. Okay, now today we've really gone over our time, but when you go and look at this, I hope it's going to help you to be able to understand cartoons. Now, practice makes perfect. You're going to go and click on this link. If you don't get to do it before your next lesson, you can do it afterwards. Click on the link. Please complete the quiz so that we can really see how you're doing. It's a little disappointing at this stage, or you can use your QR code to be able to complete the quiz. I hope you have a wonderful day. Good luck with the quiz and keep safe. Thank you.